Good morning. Today we are going to play around with Theraband and some balls, and we're going to start off the exploration with downward dog or modified downward dog, because I like it when we use a prop like a Theraband or a ball. What becomes interesting is the impact on a movement. So to see a before and after and to feel into that is really interesting. So what I'd like you to have are 2 massage balls or 2 tennis balls about that size, as well as a Theraband, and then however you want to do your downward dog, whether it's with a chair or whether it's just on your own. So come into whatever your version of, whoops, there go my balls. Whatever your version is. So whether you're here and you're coming into downward dog here, or whether you're here and you're coming into downward dog here. So whatever your version is, come into your dog. And what's cool about dog, what I find, is that when you're coming into it, whether it's from tabletop on the floor or some version on the chair, the movement, the spine does not really change a whole bunch. The movement is mostly hips, shoulders, and knees and wrists, right? So when you're stuck in through the thoracic spine, because those muscles attached to your shoulder blade, or when you're stuck in around your hip, then that can limit your ability to get in there, can have you get into your back and into your wrists and all sorts of other stuff that can occur. So what we're going to play with is starting on our hips. We're going to take one of the balls. Now I'm just going to stand the skeleton over, and I want you to see that where we're going to be rolling is all in around this hip, mostly on the outside. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of ways to play because I can't see you, so I'm not really sure where your wrists are at. But when I get into this initially, I take the ball into the outside of the hip, and I'm here and I start to roll in and around very, very, very slowly in and around this area. Now, you could do this on your back and do it this way if your wrists are not interested in having weight borne on them. Or you can do the same thing in standing against the wall, but I want you to make sure it's really easy to go like fast. I don't want you to do that. I want you to try to go really slow and just feel some of those points that are there, okay? So just feel what you feel. Try not to run by them and just notice. And in whatever position that you're in, you can then start to gently move the leg bone a little bit. When you're in one of those areas, I call them sweet spots. Other people might call them tender points. Other people might call them holy shit points. Really kind of depends on the one's perspective, right? And you can also bring, when you're on the ground here, you can also, and in standing for that matter, you can bring the ankle to the knee, and then you can come a little bit more over. Let me just bring stand over. When you bring the ankle to the knee, here, you are changing the orientation of the femur head in the socket. You can actually visibly see that here. Whoops. You can visibly see that here. When you do that, you are giving yourself more, you're giving your tissue more availability versus when you're down here, right? So when you're up here, the orientation of that hip bone is different, or that hip joint is different. So you're able to get into areas that you can't get into when you're here. So it kind of depends on what your function is and if you can do it. It's not that you have to go there. If you can't get your ankle up there, then don't do that. You can just come onto the outside of your hip and then just slide that leg bone a little bit and change the orientation and then just explore there. All right, good. And now let's come to the other side. And try not to like go speedy. Just go slow. Now I might be going faster than you. I'm talking more about the people who just are surfing and surfacing the ball. Just spend a little bit of time. It just can become a really interesting exploration. Now I'm not a fan of just using the ball for the sake of a self-massage. I know there's a lot of technique out there around that, but that's not the purpose. That's why I had you guys do the downward dog exploration at the beginning, because I want you to see what's possible. And then when we use the Theraband, we will be helping you retrain tissue, right? So I prefer to use the ball as an awareness tool as to what's actually going on in wherever part of the body that you're utilizing it, and then helping to retrain how that body part moves so that you can actually get out of the symptom cycle that you're in. Because the ball can very quickly become a fix-it type of thing, and then you're just cycling around using the ball, which is fine. It's just that you're not necessarily making any progress. Okay, so now let's come onto our backs. I'm just going to put the balls over here. We're going to use them again, but I don't want them to spray across the room again. So I'm going to come onto my back now and take a leg up and bring the ankle onto the knee. Now, if you follow me for a bit, you know that I love to keep the pelvis quiet, not anchored, just quiet. Think of it like a tonality type of feel, so that we're actually moving the leg bone in the pelvis and then rotating that leg bone and placing it on the other knee. And then we're going to move this leg bone into rotation. So if you take one hand and put it on the front of the hip, the other hand, without having to reach, just come around so your brain knows that your fingers are pointing at your, basically at your rotators at your bum. You're going to rotate that leg bone away from you. So that as you do that, the front of the hip is not being used when you're moving the leg bone away from you. You're utilizing the back of your hip, which is where we're basically rolling for the most part. And then just feel if you've got some range there. Good. And now other side. Ankle or leg bone moves up. Ankle comes over by the rotation of your leg bone in the hip socket. So really pay attention, because after you roll, you may have created some great release, but now it's about moving that leg bone. So you retrain through that hip joint how that leg bone is moving in the hip. You're changing up those neuromuscular dynamics. Now what's also interesting is bring your hands over to your other hip right now and just notice if your other hip flexor wants to fire. We push with the foot that's on the floor to brace, and then that creates all sorts of hip flexion. Okay, now from here, let's start to take a little bit of a rotation. And what becomes interesting about this movement is that the front of your hips stay quiet as you take yourself into that rotation. So the control of that movement is in through your abdomen. All right, lovely. Then take the ankle off the knee. Let's come up with the other one, and we're going to take that into rotation. Okay, perfect. Okay, now here comes the Theraband. So the Theraband's going to come around your leg. And now this is going to act as resistance. So now the leg bone moves away from your pelvis, moves away from your torso. And I have this hand in the front of my hip to just check in to make sure the front of my hip is not the one that's doing the movement. Same on the other side. I want to make sure the front of the hip, those hip flexors are not supporting this, that they're quiet. And then with this leg in rotation, now you're going to maintain the rotation. Now we're going to add this rotation. Lovely. Okay, let that go. And then other ankle comes on up. Good. And then rotate that leg bone in the hip socket. Double check that both hip flexors are quiet. And I've been focusing on your hip flexors, but also notice further up the chain to your jaw and your face and your eyes and down to your feet. Where in your body are you utilizing extraneous tension where you don't have to? Okay, and then let's take that movement into rotation. So the abdomen is controlling that movement, not your shoulders, not your neck, not your pinky toe. Lovely. Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, let's take that off. Okay, now we've got these balls here. And we're going to take these balls and we're going to put them at our T-spine. So let me bring the stand back over. Whoops. Let me bring this guy back a bit. Okay, so we're going to be taking the balls right about here. So for women, right where the bra strap is, you're going to take one ball on either side of the spine, and we're going to very gently roll our body so that the balls roll up on either side. Now, I'm going to say straight up that for some of you, this is going to be brutal. So you need to gauge what brutal means for you. Some people, they get brutal and they love it. Other people, it's like no go. So you need to determine if this makes sense for you. You could also use a rolled blanket instead, or a spinal strip. So if you've got one of these, you could fold this in half. This is the spinal strip, and place this right in the and lie on your back with that. So that would look like this. Got a veritable playroom growing here. You can also do it here. So you've got this back like so, and you're lying like this. So you could do that. You can also use a rolled blanket or a rolled mat. Okay? And if you're going to join me with the balls, then you'll place the balls starting right opposite your breastbone. So for women, it's right about where that bra strap is, and you're going to lie back over top of them. Now that might just be enough. You might be saying, okay, then, Susie, how on earth can you do this at 5 a.m. Calgary time? And then you'll be here and just rest back here. And the reason I could do this at 5 a.m. Calgary time is because I wouldn't be able to do it at 10 p.m. because I am fast asleep at 10 p.m. Okay, we're going to take the arms up to the sky now. Have your thumb tips touching, and you're going to raise your hands up to the sky and bring your shoulders back. Raise your hands up to the sky, bring your shoulders back. So the movement is the arm bone moving in the shoulder socket. Okay. And then take the arms gently over your head. Keep in mind that you're moving through the shoulder joint here. Okay, now you're going to roll up about an inch. So the balls are coming up, you're going down. And the same thing now, you're going to come over top of those balls. Hands come up. Raise them up, raise them down. So you determine what it feels like through that T-spine. Only you can make the choice. And I know that of the people who follow, many of you have T-spines that can do this and they loves it. Others of you not so much. So you just choose for yourself. Okay, ready? All right, now we're going to do it again. Easy, easy. Arms come up to the sky, shoulders come back. Arms up to the sky, shoulders back. So this is a movement of retraction and protraction, protraction to the sky, retraction back. Good. Okay, now, for some of you, as we continue to move up, as you bring the arms overhead, it's going to feel a little challenging. So don't be surprised if your range of motion becomes smaller. Okay, let's do one more. Retraction, protraction. And then arms come over. Lovely. Okay, roll over and rest back on your back. And now notice what it is that you feel. And then let's take the Theraband now. And let's just orient ourselves with the Theraband. We're going to start by initially bringing the arms up to the sky and back. And then arms come over, just to orient. Okay, now let's start to take the arms wide, like this. So I'm going to show it to you sitting. So you're on your back, arms are here, and you're going to take the arms wide like this. Now watch that you're not doing that as you do the motion. It's not that, it's that. Okay, so on your backs. Now if you have your hands closer towards the center, this is going to be a lot harder. Be aware of your neck and your jaw and your back. And even your T-spine. Do you want to grip in and around that area? Can you relax your pelvic floor? Okay, lovely. Let that go. Okay, now from here, just resting back and notice what you feel. Okay, lovely. Now, let's move ourselves back into your downward dog that you did at the beginning of this. So, I'm just going to leave my mic pack there. So if you're here in tabletop, now come up into your dog. And is anything different with how it feels now? If you were utilizing your chair, is anything feeling different now? Good. All right. So now, if something did feel different, now you know that there's something in relationship between your hips and maybe between your T-spine that's related to how your arms and your hips function. Now watch that you don't make the assumption that just because you did something through your T-spine, it impacted your arms, likely did, but the T-spine work could have also impacted your hip. Your hips could have impacted what was going on in your shoulders. So the idea here is just for you to explore. Explore and just notice, experience, and allow your body to open up, allow the neuromuscular shift to happen, and continue to build on it so those symptoms continue to go down and your movement patterns and the way that you feel and your retraining all starts to improve and make you feel better. Okay? So have a really great rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow.